warriors. That's right. Warriors for the Most High. Yahawashai. That's right. This is how we do it in Israel.
Shalom, brothers. Good evening. This is Kawakab, and brother. Shalom, everybody. I'm Yatazar. Hey, listen, we got to let you guys know we have a really information-packed show reserved tonight. And tonight, we're going to really hit up the topic, Road to Armageddon. And when I say the Road to Armageddon, literally, to give you a scriptural breakdown on what's taking place in current events, and we're not going to deal a whole lot with articles as much as we got. So the truth of the matter is, this topic gives way to so many scriptures. Let me say this: when we deal with the concept of being on the road to Armageddon, the term Armageddon literally comes from the scripture in Revelation chapter. It's actually Revelation chapter 16, starting at verse 12. We're not going to go there just yet, but I'm giving you for the most part, a breakdown on what the topic or what the term means. In Old Hebrew, when you read the scriptures, it's referred to as the Mount of the Gathering of Troops. So, in Hebrew, it would say Ha, which is mountain, Magadwan, which is how you say troops, in a gathering of troops, the place of troops in Hebrew. So, what's taking place is the Most High, through the circumstance, through the political arena, through the social arena, through what's taking place economically and in finances, is leading the world, literally the entire world, to the Third World War. In other words, the third military conflict that's intended to span all continents. It's intended. Now, technically speaking, in the military realm, any war that has, for the most part, two war theaters in two different continents is referred to as a world war. So we're going to, let me say this, and so that you understand. Like you read scriptures that will tell you about the day of the Lord. That's another term that refers to, as a matter of fact, that's what we'll open up on. We'll open up on the scriptures that speak about this expectation or this day of the Lord as it refers to it. Because the day of the Lord is another term that refers to this event called Armageddon. So we're going to bounce first and foremost to the book of Joel, and we're going to hit chapter 1 and verse 15. Joel, chapter 1 and verse 15. Hit it, brother.
Joel, chapter 1 and verse 15. Alas, for the day of the Lord is at hand.
And listen to that. But when it says the day of the Lord is at hand, it's saying the day of the Lord is approaching. Go ahead.
And as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come.
And as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come. Read it again.
Alas, for the day of the Lord is at hand. And as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come.
Now listen to this. When it says as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come, this verse and what the message that it has, it seems to completely conflict with what's taught in the Christian doctrine about the coming of Christ. Many of us have been exposed to the Christian doctrine. Many of us have been exposed to the fact that the second coming of Christ, the second coming of Christ, who the world ignorantly calls Christ. Christ is a title, meaning he's the chosen, he's the anointed. That day is expected to be a day of joy. It's expected to be a day of tears and rejoicing. And so this just got me saying that day is going to come as a destruction from the Lord or from the Almighty. Now, the reason I put the term road to Armageddon is because we're not in Armageddon. Armageddon is that final moment where the Most High is going to put it on the minds of the kings to wage war to an unprecedented level since the history of mankind, since man have been placed on the earth. So when you say road to Armageddon, this is what we're in now. When I say this is what we're in now, in other words, look at what is taking place globally with the economic. They've been calling it crisis. Really, there is no economic crisis. The crisis is a circumstance, howbeit very severe, is still, because it's a crisis, it's in the realm of being resolved. What we're in, what the world is in the midst of, is a complete collapse into anarchy, a complete collapse into the total breakdown of all social order, of all civil order. So those are the scriptures that will be included in that. From there, we're going to go to Zephaniah. Zephaniah chapter 2, verses 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead, brother.
Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1 through 3. Gather yourselves together. Yea, gather together, O nation not desired.
When it says, O nation not desired, it's talking about Israel. It's talking about us, the so-called blacks throughout the Americas, all the Native Americans that, like I said, the pre-Columbian, the pre-colonial inhabitants of this world or of these lands. This is who it's talking about. It's telling you that we're supposed to be gathering together under the banner of our nationality as taught by the Bible. Go ahead.
Verse 2. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff.
When they say before the decree bring forth, a decree is an order being given. A decree is like a mandate that goes out. So it says we're supposed to have gathered ourselves together before the Most High send out this mandate. And I'm going to tell you what this decree is, what orders this decree carries. Go ahead.
Before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you.
Before the fierce anger of the Lord. First of all, it said before the day passes the chaff. That's a term that refers to harvesting in the old days. The particular harvesting of wheat, the particular harvesting of all the different products, the different types of grains that brought about cereals and bread. You had the actual stalk upon which the desired grain, whether it was barley, whether it was spelt, whether it was wheat, you had to beat it in an area called a threshing floor. And everything that fell from that stalk was actually held or maintained and stored in granaries. And all the refuse, all the remainder that was of the stalk that didn't have any more wheat on it, it was bundled up and burned. So, and that substance was referred to historically as chaff. Like you'll find other scriptures that'll say the Most High is going to store the wheat and burn the chaff. That's in the New Testament. Well, that's what this is talking. So it's telling you the day is going to pass as the chaff. In other words, the Most High is saying there's going to be a day where the Most High is going to send a plague of fire in the world. So we are supposed to have gathered ourselves together before that decree go out. Go ahead, brother. Read it again from the top.
Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 2. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you.
Read those last two precepts again.
Before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you.
Before the fierce anger of the Most High come. Now it says the Most High's anger is coming. But it's telling these people to gather, our people, to gather themselves together before that anger do come. Go ahead.
Before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you.
Before the day of the Lord's anger come upon us. So that day of the Lord's anger, as we go into these scriptures, as we begin to unfold more, you're going to see is this single event that's referred to in the last book of the Bible called Armageddon. Read verse 3 now.
Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 3. Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought these judgments. Seek righteousness, seek meekness, and it may be the shall.
When he says seek meekness, seek righteousness, it's telling you, but you're supposed to be learning how to get taught this truth. You're supposed to be finding as many reliable sources of this information that you can use to learn as much as you possibly can so that you can get your life right, so that you can set your house in order, so that you can order yourself, so that you can actually be cultivated into a conduit, into a vessel through which the Most High is going to gather more men. That's what it means when it says, ye meek of earth. It's talking about the Israelites. Seek righteousness. Go ahead.
Seek meekness. It may be.
Listen, through having done so, it might be, go ahead.
You shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger.
You shall be what?
Hid in the day of the Lord's anger.
That, in other words, having been taught, having sought meekness, having sought righteousness, in other words, learning how to do the right thing. The right thing means that which is pleasing to the Most High. The right thing means that which can be considered scripturally fulfilling the will of the Most High, fulfilling the will of Yahawashai, taking up the responsibility of gathering your people together. If that's fulfilled, read that last part. It may what? Read again.
It may be.
In other words, it's still questionable. It may be that what?
You shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger.
In other words, because we're going to read what the day of the Lord's anger is going to bring, whether the day of the Lord's anger is going to bring unmentionable, indescribable horrors, immeasurable, incalculable suffering. That's what you know. The funny thing is, this is already taking place. Well, let me ask you this: what do you think these people in Afghanistan are going through?
Hell,
can you even try to fathom what the people of Iraq can be going through from the invasion, from the so many hours or days of bombardment that opened up in March of 2003 up until the present? These people have had no consistent electricity. They've had no potable water. They're dying, literally dying of curable diseases. And to make matters worse, that is literally the latter end of a 10-year embargo, of a 10-year period of sanctions that was used to weaken it, to soften it up really nice and good for a bombarding. That went on to be called shock and awe. That's what the Most High is talking about when he says anger. His anger is already in the earth. The seeds of his anger are already have been sown, and that's why Christ said, I've not come to send peace on the earth, I've come to send a sword. In another verse, he said, I've come to send a fire, and what will I if it already be started? What will I if it already be kindled? In other words, that fire is going on, but it's going to burn from the east and make its way on over to the good United States. It's going to make its way over to the west. Okay, was that verse 3? Yes. Okay, let's go from there. Now listen, we're going to show you what we want to do, like I said. This being titled The Road to Armageddon, we want to show you that for the most part, the nations are on that road. We're going to stay in the book of Joel, and we're going to bounce over to chapter 2 and start off at verse 1. Chapter 2 of Joel, start off at verse 1.
Joel, chapter 2, verse 1. Blow to the trumpet in Zion.
Zion is, listen, the trumpet is the scriptures. So that's what this show is about. This show and others like it, whether you find it from this particular medium of the internet, whether you find them on different shows where you can upload and what they do what they call file sharing, this is a form of blowing the trumpet in Zion, because this message is only going out to those Israelites, those people who are on that sign that you guys are so familiar with. That sign, when I say that sign, I'm talking about that sign that states who the 12 tribes of Israel are, the so-called blacks, West Indians, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Panamanians, Central Americans, South Americans, the Negroid and Indian descent, the brothers scattered throughout the Caribbean and throughout the world. You got brothers all over the world. This is the trumpet. We're supposed to be preparing our people for this that's coming. Read on down, brother.
Joel chapter 2 and verse 1. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain.
Yeah, when you read the scriptures about mountains, mountains are symbolic of kingdoms. It tells you that in the book of Jeremiah chapter 51, and it tells you that in the book of Revelation chapter 17, that mountains are kingdoms. So in the Most High's kingdom, this is what he wants being spread. He wants this message being shouted out. Go ahead.
Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh.
Now listen to this. There's that term again, the day of the Lord. Now that day of the Lord have a title. That title is called Armageddon. Go ahead.
For it is nigh at hand.
It's near, brother. Let me say this. How do you know it's near? Like I said, we're going to use these scriptures and let the scriptures show you that what's unfolding every day is we're already in it. We're, like I said, when I say we, I'm talking about everyone that's in this world. We're on the road. We're within the dynamic that's leading us to Armageddon. Go ahead.
Joel chapter 2, verse 2 now. A day of darkness,
It says the Lord's day is a day of darkness, but ain't nobody going to be singing, oh, happy day on this day. It's a day of darkness. Darkness is always identified with what? It's always identified with death. It's always identified with the unknown. It's always to be associated with the macabre. That's why the people that's into that dark style, that darkness, they always be wearing black clothes. Their hair already be black, but they're going to dye it shoe black. And then they paint their fingernails black. And then they be having black eyeliner. Because you know why? There's darkness, there's a grimness in that image. That's what the Most High say his day is like. Go ahead.
a day of darkness and of gloominess.
And you know, you be wondering why people are all depressed, because in their spirit they know it. You got all of these Edomites that's on all these antidepressants. What the hell they got to be depressed about? The world is theirs right now. But their spirit knows that this time is drawing short. They know, but they have but a short time. All the conquering they done did, all the carefree life, all the funning that they done did, they still ain't happy. They got summer homes, they got winter homes, they got homes in Europe. They don't even stay no place in one home, 12 whole months.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, in England last year, it was vetoed in the Guardian newspaper of England that 39 million prescriptions for antidepressants were prescribed to people last year.
Yeah, listen, and that's in England.
Yep.
It shows you that gloominess that the scripture was talking about, that spirit is already in the earth. Why do you think there's been an explosion in the antidepressant field of pharmaceuticals? You don't hear about breakthroughs or economic explosions in the realm of antibiotics and different forms of medicine. It's always an antidepressant and mind-altering substances, supposedly for these serotonin imbalances that Esau be having. Go ahead.
Verse 2 again. A day of darkness and of gloominess. A day of clouds and of thick darkness.
Now, when it says clouds, it ain't talking about rain clouds. When it says day of clouds, the clouds are talking about the vehicles through which the Most High is going to send Christ and the angels back. The scriptures, tell you that there's going to be an invasion. Tells you that in the book. That's one of the scriptures we got reserved for you tonight. Tells you that Christ is going to invade the world with his troops. And if you notice, among all the genres of films that's coming out, that apocalyptic theme of space invaders, that's a prominent thing now. Along with all the other type of apocalyptic, cataclysmic movies like 2012, Independence Day, War of the Worlds, that remake of War of the Worlds where they had Tom Cruise in it. The movie industry seems to be preoccupied, obsessed even, with the apocalyptic theme. Everybody knows there's an end coming. Read it, brother. It says the day of clouds.
As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. They have not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it.
When it says great people, as we read down, you're going to see this is talking about this invasion that's coming. It's not talking about the British invasion. It's not talking about the invasion that's taking place in the southwestern border of the United States. It ain't talking about the although you can find that. You can find that immigration conflict in the book of Jeremiah chapter 51. It tells you that in the midst of Babylon, one particular end is going to be lost. Before that country deteriorates, when I say that country, I'm talking about the United States of America. Before this country completely deteriorates, it's going to lose the southwestern end of it. You're going to see, and it's going to happen. This immigration issue is going to be the catalyst, because as the other governors of the other states see that this immigration move in Arizona is going to appear as though it's working, the animosity between the races, the animosity and the fighting over the job, and the diminishing over the standard of living because the immigrants have the ability to drive down wages. All of that stuff is going to make this place the most volatile place on the planet. It's already moving toward that. Read on down, brother.
Even to the years of many generations.
So when it says a great people, a strong, they have not been ever the like, it's talking about the angel that's going to invade the world. And that's what this scripture's going to break it down. This is not talking about Hispanics and black people running through the streets with bats, bricks, and TVs on their back and looting. It's literally talking about the Most High is going to send his forces in that's going to take this world down. Go ahead.
Verse 3. a fire devoureth before them.
Now listen, it says the fire goes before them. It said that in Daniel chapter 7, when it said the Most High appeared, it said he sat upon his wheels and a fiery stream went before him. When it says a fire devoured before, it's talking about the flames, the lasers that's going to be coming out of these chariots in the front. And when they would have passed over, just like you saw on Independence Day, they had the countdown. Remember, these so-called UFOs positioned themselves over all the world's major cities. And then they had used America's or the world's satellites, the Earth satellites, to synchronize the sequence to where it was a countdown. And at that one moment, what happened? Once that countdown went, bang, all the capitals, the White House, the New York, the Biltmore in Los Angeles, Egypt, all these places was ruined. And then you saw all of these big ships leaving, and behind them, what was there? It was just a total debris, total ruin. Read that again, brother. Verse 3.
A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth.
In other words, when they approach, they're going to be shooting flames, and as they move over, what's going to be left behind is nothing more than burning flames. Go ahead.
The land is as the Garden of Eden before them.
When it says the Garden of Eden, I mean it's going to be a beautiful civilization. All of these modernized and metropolis cities that's all built up, it says before them. Go ahead.
And behind them.
But when they get through with it, when they leave it, go ahead.
A desolate wilderness.
Now you saw that in those movies. You saw that in War of the World. You saw that in Independence Day. Listen, it shows you when you watch those so-called sci-fi movies, Esau's not demonstrating any of his creativity. All he's doing is going off of biblical themes, the universal concept of good versus evil and good prevailing over it. But they always showed himself as the good and the other entities as the evil. Okay, read on down, brother.
Yea, and nothing shall escape them.
Now listen to that. It says, now you got to read that verse again. Because that shows you it's not talking about, quote, earthly people. It's not talking about terrestrial beings. Go ahead, read on down. Verse 3.
Verse 3. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness.
It's showing you total destruction. Go ahead.
Yea, and nothing shall escape them.
And nothing shall escape them. It's giving you, look, as a matter of fact, now let me say this. I'm going to prove it to you. Real quick, we're going to bounce over to the book of Habakkuk, go to chapter 3, and start at verse 3. Read that.
Habakkuk, chapter 3 and verse 3.
Go ahead.
The Most High came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran.
Now, when he said Teman and Paran, today, in the modern day, that's symbolic for the Most High coming from the east, because that's where Paran is. Teman and Paran, those are all areas that are in the Middle East. Particularly, Teman is like literally east of Jerusalem. Go ahead.
Salam. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise.
When it says his glory covered the heavens, it's talking about Habakkuk saw a vision of the Most High coming. And when he said covered the heavens, read that again. His glory?
His glory covered the heavens.
In other words, did you see those crafts, let me say this, all of those big, huge spaceships in that movie, Independence Day, how they were the size of every city? But remember, out in space, they had detached themselves from even a bigger one. Because Esau knows that the Most High have this big craft that he rode in, and the scriptures, it said, when you read the scriptures that refer to the Most High dwelling in thick darkness, that's the thick darkness that he dwells in. It's big, huge, what Esau calls UFOs. They are what the scripture referred to as the chariots of fire, the thick clouds. These are the vehicles that the angels, the Most High Christ, that they traveled the heavens in. Go ahead.
And the earth was full of his praise.
Continue.
And his brightness was as the light.
Now listen, it's going to show you when Christ comes, what type of power he's coming with. Go ahead.
He had horns coming out of his hand.
Now, Habakkuk saw the Lord coming, and he said he had horns coming out of his hand. Is he speaking of horns like the horn of the Texas Longhorns? Is he speaking horns like something that you actually would blow? No. Now, when you read this very same verse in the Spanish version, the same version Bible, but the Spanish translation, it doesn't say horns. It literally says he had rays coming out of his hand. The saying is, y rayos salía de sus manos, meaning he had rays came out of his hands. Because, like, particularly, that movie Iron Man, You notice how he configured his suit to be able to do them blasts of power. But what it looked like was a big ball of light around his hand. Whatever this particular superhero was shooting at, the energy that left from that space in his hand, it narrowed down to a fine point till it got to the target that he was targeting. That's what it's talking about when it says, in other words, Habakkuk saw this destruction. He saw Christ. He saw him coming, he said, and he had horns, meaning he had an energy that was coming out of his hand that was thick when it left his hand, but as it got to the point that it was striking, what happened? It narrowed down to that fine point. In other words, like a laser, like that, quote, supernatural power. Read verse 4.
And his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power.
Did you hear that? He had horns coming out of his hand, and there in his hand was the hiding of his power. Because he wasn't walking around with a Mac 10. He didn't have an AK-47. He didn't have a Smith & Wesson 6-shooter revolver. He had power that you couldn't see until he put his hands out. Read that verse again. Verse 4, Habakkuk chapter 3 and verse 4.
And his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand.
And there in his hand
was the hiding of his power.
Was the hiding of Christ's power, brother. Now tell me that's not talking about that supernatural. That's why the scripture just read. We're going back to Joel. Don't close the book to Joel. That's why the scripture said what? That a flame went before them, and there was nothing but burning flames behind them. It said the world was as the Garden of Eden when they came, and when they left, it was as a wilderness, and nothing was able to escape. Now this is why this is what Armageddon is going to lead to. Are we still in Habakkuk? That was verse 4, right?
Yes.
And there was the hiding of his power. Now I want you to jump down to verse 16.
Verse 16. When I heard, my belly trembled.
This is talking about Habakkuk, the fear that was produced in him. The fear that this vision, when the Most High gave it to him, it evoked. The trembling, he said, literally, his belly trembled. Go ahead.
My lips quivered at the voice.
Continue.
Rottenness entered into my bones.
When he said that rottenness entered the he felt like he was dying from the inside out. Go ahead.
And I trembled in myself that I might rest in the day of trouble.
He said when he said he might rest in the day of trouble, he was praying that he would already be dead when that day came. For the vision that he saw, the best that Habakkuk could come up with was, I hope on that day I'm already dead. That's what it means that I rest in the day of trouble. Read on down.
When he cometh up unto the people.
When Christ, when the Lord, when he cometh up unto the people,
he will invade them with his troops.
He will what?
Invade them with his troops.
One more time.
Invade them with his troops.
He will invade them with his troops, brother. He will invade them. That's why when you go now, we're going to bounce back to Joel chapter 2, and we're going to read that verse again. Verse 3. Joel chapter 2 and verse 3 to show you. Because a lot of brothers read the scripture and they think it's talking about a bunch of wild-ass Israelites running through the street once martial law is declared. No. When martial law is declared, wild-ass niggas is going to be getting thrown in FEMA camps. That's what's going to be happening to wild-ass niggas. So this is talking about the Most High angelic force that's going to come and be freeing up them wild-ass niggas out of the FEMA camps. Read on down.
Joel chapter 2 and verse 3. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth.
Now, remember, Habakkuk said, but particularly the leader of this group, it said, horns, meaning his power, came out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. Go ahead.
The land is as the Garden of Eden before them.
In other words, as they're approaching, you have a complete civilization, intact, beautiful even. Go ahead.
And behind them a desolate wilderness.
And when they leave, there's not, read on down.
Yea, and nothing shall escape them.
In other words, listen, they're not going to leave anything alive. Go ahead. Verse 4 now.
Verse 4. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses. And as horsemen, so shall they run.
Go ahead.
Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains.
Now, why would it say like the noise of chariots on the top of mountains if they're not flying over them? This is talking about the angels that's going to be coming in literally from the heavens. Go ahead.
Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap. Go ahead. Like the noise of a...
You know, when it says shall they leap, in other words, if you've ever seen, even in Esau's science fiction rendition of so-called UFOs, they always show them, they got that mode called hyperspace, where they seem to be able to just look like little lights darting from one part of the universe to the other. That's how the angels really do travel. That's why it says they're going to be leaping. In other words, Ezekiel, the first chapter of Ezekiel explains actually that when Christ comes, literally, in other words, when the chariots come, the chariots are literally going to be moving so fast, literally incredibly fast, the eye's not going to be able to keep up with them. Listen, when we're going to read down, it tells you about a great army coming. A lot of people, this is brothers running through the street. No, during the time of martial law, there are going to be brothers. It's going to be everybody in the street. Hopefully, the only ones that won't be in the street is us Israelites that are awake. For instance, listen, I'm going to show you, brother. We're going to jump down to verse 7. I'm going to show you what I'm referring to. Read verse 7. You're still in Joel, chapter 2, verse 17.
They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. And they shall march everyone on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks.
Now, that's talking about the angels coming in from area. But when they say they shall run through the streets, it's not talking about they're going to literally be on foot. It's literally talking about them coming in aerially, and there's not going to be any area of the city, any area of the empire that they invade that they're not going to cover. Read on down, you'll see it.
Verse 8. Neither shall one thrust another.
When it says one thrust another, they're not going to be attacking each other. In other words, with militarily, you know how they call friendly fire? Esau and his military? In the fog of war, as they like to call it. They literally be shooting their own soldiers, be shooting their own, what would you call them, companions. Well, so this is the Most High telling, when he send these people, they're going to be, or this army, they're not going to be falling on each other on the sword. They're not going to be thrusting each other through. Go ahead.
They shall walk everyone in his path.
In other words, they all going to be sent on the course that the Most High got them on. Go ahead.
And when they fall upon the sword.
In other words, when Esau be shooting at them, because that's the other verses, we're going to go to all these. We're going to try to get to as many scriptures as we can to show you. Esau is going to be fighting these angelic forces. That's why when you read Revelation, it tells you that Michael and his angels fought the dragon. It says, and the dragon and his angels fought and prevailed not. In other words, Esau's military is already prepping. If this entire global power structure that Esau seems to have the world under his grip, then why is there a need for weaponizing space? Why is there a need for Esau with his, what he calls anti-particle guns? In other words, these are not weapons that's designed to destroy matter or particles like you and I or buildings. These are weapons that's designed to destroy what is considered antimatter. And you can't hold it. You can't grab it. You can't slap no cuffs on it and throw it in the back of a squad car and then lie and say it hung itself in jail. Read that verse again.
Neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk everyone in his path.
Go ahead.
And when they fall upon the sword.
In other words, it says when they fall upon somebody, when they're fired upon. When they are attacked, go ahead.
They shall not be wounded.
They shall not be wounded. Continue with verse 9.
They shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb upon the houses. They shall enter in at the windows like a thief.
Read on down.
The earth shall quake before them.
Now, this is what it's talking about. It's talking about all of the trembling the Most High going to have going on. There's a scripture in Isaiah where it says the earth shall reel to and forth like a drunkard. These forces are coming to destroy this place. Go ahead.
The heavens shall tremble. The sun and the moon shall be dark.
When it says the sun and the moon shall be dark, that's already started. That's literally talking about from all the destruction, from all the burning of the buildings, from Esau's empire burning, literally. But like in certain parts of the world right now in the daytime, because of the fighting that's going on, you can't see the sun in the daytime. A lot of you brothers with that military experience that literally fought in Desert Storm, you guys remember that. You remember being out there in the middle of Kuwait in the heat of the day and you couldn't see because of all the bombardment, because of all the oil that was on fire, because of all the burning debris. Go ahead.
And the stars shall withdraw their shining.
Continue.
And the Lord shall utter his voice before his army.
Now listen, it's proven. That's the Most High's army that he's describing. When it said the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, it's literally telling you, brother, the Most High is going to be giving orders to his army. Read on down.
And his camp is very great.
For his camp is very great. Now, what verse was that?
11.
Okay, this is what I want you to do. We're still in Joel, chapter 2. We're going to jump down to verse 28. And for between verse 28 and 31, it's going to sum it up and tell you what this moment would have been.
Joel chapter 2, verse 28.
Uh-huh.
And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh.
Now, we're in that right now. Continue.
And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy.
When he said all flesh, he ain't talking about pouring his spirit out on Esau. He's not talking about pouring his spirit out. When he said all flesh, remember, we're dealing with a document called the Holy Bible that is a book. I should say it is a compilation of books that is addressed, that is directed at one group of people. So when he said all flesh, he's saying out of that nation, potentially the Most High can wake them up and have them prophesying. Go ahead.
Your old men shall dream dreams.
Uh-huh.
Your young men shall see visions.
Go ahead.
And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit.
Continue.
And I will show wonders in the heavens.
Now, when he said wonders in the heavens, the term, as a matter of fact, we're going to have a topic on that. Actually, if you want to get the most thorough breakdown that we can give you in the most timely fashion, our YouTube channel, which is Kawakab 1, meaning the number 1, Kawakab 1, if you go to YouTube and you type in Heaven Part 1, Heaven Part 2, Heaven Part 3, we give you the most exhaustive breakdown on the topic heaven and all things pertaining to it, because that's the whole point. Is we don't just break down the kingdom of heaven. We break down the concept or the principle behind the fact that it can be used in different instances. You're going to find 30 10-minute clips. It was 5 hours of teaching on that topic, because this here, when it says, and I will show wonders in the heavens, you notice the heavens is plural. It's talking about all the kingdoms. What the Most High is getting ready to mention is going to be taking place in all the kingdoms. Heaven, in this sense, being used as kingdoms, like the Arabs are in their heaven. Although Esau is putting hell on them, the Chinese are in their heaven. Read on down.
And in the earth.
And in the earth, go ahead.
Blood.
Now he's naming what's going to be taking place. Is the sky raining blood? No. So when he says heavens and the earth, he's talking about the kingdom, the real, and throughout the world, in the realms of men, in various places of the earth, the Most High is going to have a whole lot of bloodshed going on. Let me say this. Have you guys been tripping off or been at least familiar with the rest of the fact that sinkholes are popping up all over the world? They're still happening out here. And loads of sinkholes in China. Another one happened recently in Oakland. Through these unexplainable events, the Most High is having a lot of bloodshed. Now, he's talking about death, blood,
and fire, and pillars of smoke.
Those are the things that are darkening the sky. Blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. Go ahead.
The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood.
That's already taken place. In other words, in certain parts of the world, Iraq is under siege still. Afghanistan, certain parts of Afghanistan. In Pakistan, Esau got all of these unmanned drones attacking people that they're not officially at war with and that are no threat to them. This is what it's talking about. Read it again. The sun shall be turned into darkness. Go ahead.
And the moon into blood before the great and the terrible day of the Lord comes.
That's telling you before the great and terrible day of the Lord. That's showing you that ain't even the great and terrible day. What we just read, we're in that already. That's why the name of the topic of the show is The Road to Armageddon, because we're on it. The world is on a course right now to this day, like the scripture said in Revelation, to this event that's going to take place in 1 year, in 1 month, in 1 day, and in that day, 1 hour of that day. This thing is going to be indescribable. Now, from there, you're in chapter 2. Let's do this. Let's go and find out, because you guys keep hearing me screaming Iraq. You keep hearing me shout out, talking about this is taking place right now in Pakistan. We're going to go through a couple of scriptures and show you this is exactly where it's supposed to take place. How do we know the period that we're in right now, according to Revelations, is the period of the sixth trumpet. We got one more trumpet to go, or as it says, the sixth vial, the sixth seal, because there's only 7 of them, and the 7th is that actual event called Armageddon. So Joel chapter 2 and verse 20. We're going to let the scriptures describe where this event, when it says the road to Armageddon, if we're on the road to Armageddon got to be someplace. Just like if you went on the road to Canada. In other words, you're going to take a certain route with the intention of what? Arriving in a place called Canada. Read on down, brother.
Joel chapter 2 and verse 20.
Joel chapter 2 and verse 20. Go ahead.
But I will remove far off from you the northern army.
This is what Christ said. I'm going to prove to you that the northern army is talking about the United States military. But we're going to do it in the scriptures. When the Most High said that he would remove far off from us the northern army, for the most part, the scriptures tell you that Christ is going to make his invasion specifically on the war theater and then in Babylon. Now, the war theater, particularly, is called Armageddon. America, scripturally, is Babylon the Great. So when he said he's going to move from us the northern army, it's talking about literally America because of North America. Let's prove this real quick. We're going to come back to Joel, so you guys don't let Joel go. But I'm going to show you, America referred to as the northern country is in the Bible various times. So we're going to get one of them in Jeremiah chapter 23, and we're going to read verse 7 and 8. Jeremiah chapter 23. And now we're just using this to reference where this northern army. When the Most High said, I will move far off from you the northern army, that this is proof that it's talking about America. Read that, brother.
Jeremiah 23, verse 7 and 8. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt.
Now, this verse is making reference to the Most High telling you the time is going to come when it will no longer be boasted upon how he delivered us, or our forefathers, I should say, from physical Egypt in the ancient days. There's going to be something greater to sing about. There's going to be something more greater to praise the Most High about. Read that again.
Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt.
But, in other words, they're not going to say that, but this is what they're going to say. Go ahead.
The Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel.
The Lord liveth, which brought up and led the seed, meaning the descendants of the house of Israel,
out of the north country.
Out of the north country. Now that's talking about the deliverance. Go ahead.
And from all countries whither I had driven them.
And all the other countries where the Most High scattered them. But like, for instance, we're down here in Guatemala, in Central America, and all this place is nothing but full of Israelites. All up in Europe, all up in England, all up in France, all the areas where the Most High driven. But not until and not before he be done taken down that northern country. That not before the Most High be done broke the might of the north country. Now, go back to Joel. So that's how we know it's talking about America. And then let's go and use some geopolitical common sense. Let's throw the geopolitical aspect on in this conversation. Read that, Joel chapter 2 and verse 20.
Joel chapter 2 and verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the northern army.
Now, a lot of people like to say that this is Russia. But before we start off with Russia, let's deal with the utmost northern country of North America. The North American continent consists of, beginning from the south to the north, Mexico, United States, and Canada. Now, all over the world, and especially in Latin America, when you refer to North America, they're not talking about Canada. They're not talking about Mexico. When they refer to Mexico, they say Mexico or Mexico. When they refer to Canada, they say Canada or los canadienses. When they say Americans, they don't say Americans. They say Norteamericano, because it's the North. But just to show you, just to be more accurate, geopolitically speaking, is the Canadian Army being sent overseas? Because no one seems to be able to use geopolitical deductive reasoning. Let's say it's talking about Russia. If you take the route going north of the United States, you run into Canada, the North Pole, and then on the other side of the North Pole, you got Russia. And that's what a lot of people like to break it down like that, and it's not talking about Russia. When it says the North country, read it again. I will remove far off from you the North army
and will drive him into a land barren and desolate.
So ask yourself, is Canada military recently been driven into a desert, a land that's barren and desolate? No. Is Russia moved its military into a land? The last time Russia left home was when they was during the 80s, when they had invaded, when they got lured into invading Afghanistan. Russia didn't just make an aggressive move. The only country that's in the North American continent whose military is being moved to a region of the world where it says where it is a barren and desert is the United States. And it's referred to as North America. And the Most High said it's going to be the what? The Northern Army. Read on down, brother.
With his face toward the east sea, and his hinder part toward the utmost sea. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up.
Hey, listen to this. It says with his face toward the east sea and his hinder part. In other words, it's showing you there is a direction that this military is, for the most part, headed in. It's headed east. So its face is the east sea now. Historically speaking, the Red Sea, that was referred to as the East Sea. But when you look at what's taking place in the modern times, read that whole verse again, because I want to show them, I want to prove to them, this is talking about the conflict, the actual area of Armageddon. How can I put it? They like to call ground, let's use the term ground zero. Ground zero of Armageddon is literally going to be centered in the Iraq or in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is a Greek word that literally means between the rivers. You're talking about the Tigris and the Euphrates. When you read the scriptures, it literally tells you in Revelation that the conflict, the Most High was going to release the spirit that would lead to this conflict from the Euphrates River. The Euphrates River runs north and south through the country today that's called Iraq, and that's where the American military got sent. Read it again, brother.
Joel chapter 2 and verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the northern army.
Yep.
And will drive him into a land barren and desolate.
Now it's generalized. It's letting you what? The brother reading next is going to be geographically general. In other words, it can happen any place between the East Sea and the utmost sea. The utmost sea, biblically speaking, is known as the Mediterranean. Go ahead.
With his face toward the East Sea.
Now today, the East Sea, you can go look at it. It's on a map. It is the Sea of Japan. Continue.
And his hinder part toward the utmost sea.
In other words, he's closed in. His face is toward the East Sea. His hinder part is toward the utmost. Do your research. Go Google it and just Google in biblical map, utmost sea. You're going to see. It's the Mediterranean Sea. Go Google in East Sea. You're going to see. It's the Sea of Japan. But that's too broad an area. That is too broad an area. So the next scripture we go to is going to narrow it down. Some more there. It says in his word.
And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he has done great things.
In other words, when it says stink and his ill savor, that's talking about the smell from all the dead and rotting and decomposing carcasses that will be there after that battle will have taken place. But let's do this. Let's go to two books in Revelation. We're going to go to Revelation chapter 9 and start at verse 13. I want you to, and then we'll go to Revelation 16 afterwards. Revelation chapter 9. Why am I going here? This is what I'm trying to show you is when we put the title, The Road to Armageddon, there really is a place called Armageddon that you got to take a road to. In other words, that where armies are being sent to. Joel referred to it as the Valley of Jehoshaphat because the term Jehoshaphat refers to an ancient day circumstance where two Israelite kings, one from the northern kingdom, one from the southern kingdom, were trying to determine should they go to war. It's a moment, a decisive moment, where a nation is deciding what move to make that will lead to war. And that's what the Most High is doing. So you in where?
Revelation chapter 9 and verse 13.
Verse 13, go ahead. Revelation chapter 9 and start off at verse 13.
And the sixth angel sounded, And I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar.
When you say the sixth angel, these are angels that have been given either 6 trumpets, one apiece. I shouldn't say 6, 7, or 6 vials, as in pouring something on the earth, or 6 seals, as in 6 letters that have to be broken and opened and read or announced. So this one particularly is talking about an angel who was in charge of the 6th seal. Go ahead.
Which is before the Most High.
Says
the 6th angel, which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates.
Loose, meaning release. Unleash the 4 spirits, angels that are bound in the great river Euphrates. It's telling you, brother. Now, once again, it's telling you, listen, when the Most High wants something done, there's angels that are in charge of it. Whenever things are to transpire on the earth, they are sanctioned, given orders, and determined how in the spiritual realm that people like to call heaven. That's one of the uses for the word heaven. So when it says that the Most High literally is going to, these angels were released, an order was given to release these angels in the great river Euphrates. They've been released to serve a purpose. Go ahead.
And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the 3rd part of men.
Now, when it said that, once again, when it says, it started off with the year, right?
Yep.
In other words, here's the point. These angels are released with the intention of bringing the world to a moment there is a predetermined moment that only the Most High knows. Not even Yahawashai, not even the Savior. Tells you that in the Gospel, Christ himself says he don't even know the day that it's going to take place in one year. There has been designated in that year a month. Within that month, there's been designated a day. And if you read Revelation chapter 18, within that day, there is designated an hour in which this thing is going to be done. Read on down.
Verse 16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000.
Now, people are talking about that's the Chinese army. And it's not talking about the Chinese army. It's talking about, like we just read in Habakkuk chapter 3 and verse, 16, where it said, Christ shall invade the world. It said he shall come up and invade the people with his troops. That's what it's talking about. Read on down. Is that it?
Yeah.
What verse is that?
16.
Go ahead.
And I heard the number of them, and thus I saw the horses in the vision.
Okay, stop. Listen, here's the whole point. What we went to that verse for was to pinpoint ground zero of Armageddon. Because remember, Joel told us that it was going to be simply between the East Sea and between the Mediterranean Sea, or the utmost sea. The Sea of Japan and the Mediterranean, that's all of Asia. That is all of East. It's the Middle East to the Far East. Now, go to Revelation chapter 16, and it's going to give you listen, the same thing, the same information, but with just a little bit more detail. Go ahead.
Revelation chapter 16, verse 12. And the 6th angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates.
Now, Revelation 9, John saw an angel that was given this charge do it through a trumpet. It said, and the 6th angel sounded, and four angels were released. John saw a similar vision a while later that was recorded as the 16th chapter, and he said, this 6th angel poured his vial over the earth. Go ahead.
And the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared.
Now, that's not talking about the Euphrates River drying up. Read it again from the top.
And the 6th angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates.
I want to call to your attention again, the great river Euphrates runs north and south, from south to north to south, through the country that we know today as Iraq. Now, what was the purpose of these angels blowing their trumpet and releasing these 4 angels in that region? Pouring out the vial over this whole region, and it said the waters were dried up. It's not saying that the water physically of the H2O, that body of water called the Euphrates River, is going to be dried up. It's talking about the Most High released these spirits And those spirits go and they work on the minds of the kings of these countries so that the dynamic is created and the circumstances come about that lead to bringing armies to that region. So how did this begin? I'm going to tell you how it began. It began in 1991 when Saddam Hussein was accused of unjustifiably invading Kuwait. You understand? So that was that spirit. The first thing it did was it worked on the mind of Saddam Hussein to make the move that he made. Then another spirit involved the United States. It was President Daddy Bush at the time, who ended up invading under an operation called Operation Desert Storm. Came back, the Most High used the spirits to drag in Daddy Bush had won, his successor, William J. Clinton, who went and enforced and implemented and enforced 10 years of sanctions on that country, that through which the river runs through that region. 10 years of enforcing a no-fly zone, policy over the 33rd parallel that went over Iraqi airspace. Cut that country off from medical supplies and basic needs that keep, like I said, that keep people alive and keep them from dying of what are called curable diseases, and softened it up and made it ready for the third president to come. And ever since then, 2003, that country's been in shambles. But you know what? That was this prophecy being fulfilled. Read that verse from the top again. Chapter 16, starting at verse 12.
And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up.
In other words, the preparations were made. Though the circumstances were brought to fruition to get war coming in that place. Go ahead.
That the way of the kings of the east might be prepared.
That the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. Go ahead.
And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon.
Now, it's not talking about 3 frogs. He said 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out. When he said the dragon, it's literally talking about the entire Edomite nation. Go ahead.
And out of the mouth of the beast.
The beast is that military force today that we call NATO, or that is recognized as NATO, that's led by the United States. Go ahead.
And out of the mouth of the false prophet.
And out of the mouth of the false prophet was that religious institution that sanctioned it as a holy war, and that Bush was a man of God. In other words, when it comes down to it, you know what it's talking about? It's talking about all the elements involved created that propaganda. Creating that propaganda. When I say propaganda, meaning literally. Let's go into this, man, because I would like to talk about this. Look at what happens every time the white man decides he's going to attack another culture. The first thing you do is start putting out messages in the news about what's taking place in the country. What was one of the reasons that was justifiable for the first Iraqi invasion? Does anybody remember? You remember how it was talking about how he had invaded Kuwait, and Bush, they had paid a lot of these different uncles. I have to call them Uncle Tom Iraqis. They were saying that the soldiers had went into hospitals in Kuwait, was taking babies out of incubators and throwing them on the floor. They accused Saddam Hussein for gassing all them people in the north. Do you remember any of that? When it said that these 3 unclean spirits, like frogs, came out of the mouths of these 3 entities, it's talking about the collective aspects of this empire. For instance, all of the Edomite countries were behind it. That's why I said the dragon. The dragon, literally, when you read the scriptures, you got 2 senses in which the dragon is referred to. It's talking about the spiritual demon Satan, and it's talking about the Edomite nation. The Edomite nation is collectively the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan. That's who it is. But when you talk about the dragon in the spiritual sense, that's the spiritual demon Satan. So when it said out of the mouth, read that again. And I saw 3 unclean spirits.
Revelations chapter 16 and verse 13.
Go ahead.
And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon.
Why did it say the mouth? Why did it say the mouth? Because the mouth is the apparatus through which messages are conveyed, through which information is
and out of the mouth of the beast.
So the dragon is the overall, it's the Edomite nation collectively. Not specifying America, not specifying the beast, England, not specifying Australia. It is the Edomite nation. Go ahead.
And out of the mouth of the false prophet.
When it said out of the mouth of the beast, it's talking about that military force. Now, how do we know that? All you got to do is go to the verse where it says, who is able to make war with the beast? Because it's talking about NATO. Every time the United States roll, they do what? They always roll. Now, they'll have an American general, they'll have a British general, and they'll be like the commander of the NATO forces in the Afghanistan war theater. You hear about it on the news every day. So this is what it's talking about. In other words, you have the military forces, you got the political structure, and you got the religious structure that created a scenario, that created the propaganda to get the world to back an invasion in this part of the world. Go ahead.
For they are the spirits of devils.
Now, what's the term devil mean? The term devil means false accuser. The term devil means slanderer, because all of those countries that are being invaded have been wrongfully accused of being a threat somehow on the other side of the world to the United States of America. And most recently, the justification for going back in Iraq in 2003 was the weapons of mass destruction that they never found. But there seem to be the weapons of mass illusion, because they ain't there. But that was the reason. Because this system that consists of those three parts were accusing that country of what? Of possessing weapons of mass destruction, and therefore being a threat to the world and being a threat to democracy. Go ahead.
Working miracles which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world.
Go ahead. Read again.
To gather them to the battle of that great day of the Most High Almighty.
In other words, that's the whole point. What we're trying to listen. Now I'm going to show you something. So in this matter of fact, I'm going to get one more. I'm going to go to the book of 2nd Exodus in the Apocrypha, and we're going to show you once again the war theater. It encompasses the East, the Arab world, and the so-called Israeli. 2nd Exodus chapter 15, and I want you to read verse 20 and 21.
2nd Exodus chapter 15 and verse 20. Behold, saith the Most High, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me.
Now let me say this. Now this is the same prophecy, but it's being worded different. In Revelation, it literally says that angel sounded a trumpet, chapter 9 of Revelation. In chapter 16, it said an angel poured his vial out, and it lets you know that what? That the reason, the ground zero, the epicenter of this event would take place from the Euphrates, and now this verse is going to show you it's going to expand outward, laterally. Joel said that also. Joel said it's going to extend from the Mediterranean all the way to the East Sea, which I tell you is the Sea of Japan. Brothers will not agree with that, but I'm going to show you this scripture and show you why I say the Sea of Japan. Not to mention that because America have military bases in Japan, military bases in Pakistan, military bases in Afghanistan, Iraq, the whole damn country is a military base called the Green Zone. The Green Zone seems to be getting bigger and bigger, and civilian Iraq seems to be shrinking. You know what I mean? The damn country is going to be a green zone. Now, let's read that. 2nd Exodus in the Apocrypha, chapter 15, verses 20 and 21. This is the Most High describing the same event, the gathering of troops in one area in the east. Go ahead.
Behold, saith the Most High, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me, which are from the rising.
Now, hold on. Which are what?
From the rising of the sun.
He said, which are from the rising of the sun. Tell me, what country is referred to as the land of the rising sun? Tell me the name of the country today that is referred to as the land of the rising sun. You will find out that it is Japan. That's a clue that the Most High left for us. Read it again.
Go saith the Most High, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me.
Now he's going to tell you where they're going to stand from. Go ahead.
which are from the rising of the sun.
In other words, the rising of the sun is the farthest east you can go before you hit California again. Now, California is considered the utmost west coast of the United States, and therefore the west coast of the world. The reason why I say it's the west coast of the world is because the United States is the west, and California is the utmost west of that place. So you can't go no more farther west. The next place you run into is what? Japan. So that place is what, though? That is the far east. So from the rising of the sun, the land of the rising sun is Japan. Go ahead.
From the south,
let me say this. The scriptures tell you from the south. There's a place called Sheba and Dedan. And that place today is called Yemen. That's how far south. Let me say this. Go and start checking your current events. They had already started putting in the news about 5 months ago that what? That Al-Qaeda is planning an attack from Yemen. Obama's been talking about invading Yemen. Go ahead.
from the east,
That's talking about the Middle East. Go ahead.
and Libanus.
And Libanus is the farthest west that you can go in the east. Libanus is Lebanon. Lebanon is on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. So if you look at it from east to west, it's saying the same thing that Joel said, from the Mediterranean to the East Sea. But this one says from Libanus, or vice versa, from the rising of the sun, which is Japan, to Libanus, because we're going east to west, which is Lebanon, which is the shores of what? Of the Mediterranean Sea. You go farther south from the Persian Gulf or from Iraq, the farther south you can go in that landmass of Yemen. That's the farthest south you can go. This is going to be the war theater, and all armies are going to be involved. Why do you think America has 3 to 4 U.S. carrier groups in those waters, between the Mediterranean, the Persian Gulf, and the Gulf of Suez, or the Suez Canal? Why do you think that is? Because the Most High is all, it's like this is like the big new Brzezinski said. This is the grand chessboard. And the Most High is playing the ultimate geopolitical strategic game. He's drawn all these kings, and they think that they're going to actually expand the Anglo-American Empire. When I say Anglo-American Empire, it's to be understood that it's talking about England and America plan on extending their empire to the east. They plan on westernizing the east. Why do you think they keep telling you the Iraqis and the Afghanis are enjoying freedom and democracy? That's a Western concept that began in Greece. But why do they keep pushing that on these people? Read on down, brother.
To turn themselves one against another.
Read it from the top again, verse 20.
Behold, saith the Most High, I will call together all the kings of the earth to reverence me, which are from the rising of the sun,
which are from Japan,
from the south,
as far south as Yemen. In other words, encompassing Saudi Arabia also. They're going to be involved. Egypt going to be involved. Go ahead. Those are all U.S. American puppet states down there. Go ahead.
From the east, and Libanus,
and all the way to Lebanon. That's the Mediterranean Sea. So it's saying the same thing that Joel said when Joel said the Most High was going to take the northern army. Now, let me ask you this, brothers and sisters that are listening. Who else fits that description? Is the Russian military making moves on the east? Is the Japanese military doing it? Hell, is Canada doing it? Maybe the Mexican government is doing it. There's only one country in the North American continent that fits that description, that is shipping their army over there. It ain't got to the point where a lot of the states are vulnerable because you got the states' national guards that have been deployed overseas. That's what's happening. You know what I'm saying? So, listen, we're going to move on. I think I made that point abundantly clear. Let's do this. We're going to go back to Joel chapter 2 and read that last verse, because remember, all of this is describing the day of the Lord. Continue.
Joel chapter 2 and verse 31. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord comes.
So that's the point I was making. The dynamic that we see involved now, that's underway. It didn't say that event, the blood and the smoke and the blackening of the skies and the sun not shining. It didn't say that that's the day of the Lord. It said that that's leading to the day of the Lord. We're in that already. I'm trying to show you. We're already at the door. The brothers got to stand fast. The sisters got to support the brothers standing fast. The Most High is about to the east, all that left. Now listen, why do you think Christ said, as the light shineth in the east and maketh it all the way to the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be? The conflict is going to start over there, and it's going to work its way all the way over to the west. Now from there, matter of fact, we're going to stay in the book of Joel. This time we're going to go to chapter 3. This is the road to Armageddon we're on. Chapter 3, I want you to start at verse 9.
Joel chapter 3 and verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles.
What are we supposed to be proclaiming among the Gentiles? Are we supposed to be proclaiming democracy? Read it again.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles.
Democracy now. Read it again.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles.
Go out and vote.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles.
Vote for Obama.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles.
Have you seen them damn commercials of them kids singing, yes, we can, yes, we can for Obama? Have you seen it? They be dressing up in little blue T-shirts, and they got some little Chinese ladies talking about, yes, we can, yes, we can go to war for Obama. Yes, we can be deployed overseas. That's what's going to happen. Read that verse again in its entirety. Joel chapter 3 and verse 9.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war.
Prepare what?
War.
What?
War.
People talk about the age of Aquarius. But you got the age of the A-bomb that's coming. Some of the age of this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. This is the end of the age of Aquarius. This is the dawning of the age of war. Go ahead.
Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men.
Now, when it said wake up the mighty men, who are the mighty men? The mighty men are the first world countries with nuclear capabilities. And I'm sorry, that's even a misnomer, as brothers of people like to say, because you can't call America. You can't simply state that America has nuclear capabilities. Capabilities is a damn understatement. You know, like Russia's nuclear capabilities, or as the old GW used to say, President Bush, nuclear. You know, Russia don't just simply have nuclear. He used to really say that, nuclear. He don't just simply have nuclear capabilities. It's a I'm saying it real. It's a nuclear powerhouse. So when he said wake up the mighty men, that's talking about America. It's talking about Russia. It's talking about the NATO forces. Let me see this. And it's talking about the Shanghai Cooperation. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And I will get into that later on tonight. Go ahead, brother.
Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men.
And the mighty men are already awake. They're not just awake. Hell, they're already on the battlefield. That's talking about the coalition forces. Continue.
Let all the men of war draw near.
Where are they drawn to? We already know now. Generally speaking, they're going to be between Japan. Basically, they're going to be in the continent of Asia. More specifically, they're going to be ground zero, or I should say at the epicenter of the war theater is going to revolve around what's taking place in the land of Iraq. In other words, where the great river Euphrates run through. Go ahead.
Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords.
Like I said, I believe I brought this out last week. When they say beat your plowshares into swords, that's talking about the arms building. All that arms proliferation. You know what I mean? The arms sales is up, man. Go ahead. In other words, people are what? Are doing their military defense spending. Building it up, preparing for this day. Go ahead.
Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears.
Yeah, all these different agriculture programs are suffering because the military got to be beefed up, especially in the States. Go ahead.
Let the weak say, I am strong.
Now, when it says let the weak say I'm strong, who that's talking about? Who are the weak? The weak are talking about those third world countries. But why would the weak come back in the face of the strong and say, I am strong? Because India got nuclear capabilities now. Because Pakistan got nukes. Because China got nukes. Damn, 100 years ago, China was still fighting with swords with red ribbons on the end of it. Now they got nukes. Hell, 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago, the Chinese was nodding out on heroin, man, because of what the Brits did to them. Now you want to talk about weak. North Korea got nukes and ain't got no food. They got nukes and they too weak to push the damn button. Read that again, brother.
Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong.
Yeah, in other words, it said let the strong come forth. Like I said, those are those first world powers. That's the NATO forces. But when it says let the weak say I'm strong, that's talking about all of those nations who are to this very day still considered developing nations. But you know what? Why would they come and boast and say and beat their chest and say I'm strong? Because they got the weapon that neutralizes an attack. You know, that was the whole concept in the Cold War, that the United States had an unsurmountable amount of nuclear weapons, and so did the Russians, and so it didn't make sense to attack because it would be a mutually assured destruction. Well, these nations are itching to use them now. Go ahead.
That's 11. Assemble yourselves and come, O ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause the mighty ones to come down, O Lord.
Now listen to it. I want you to read that part again. Read that whole verse again, because it's showing you in the place where these nations are gathered together for war. Joel said, "Thither," meaning there, in that place, Lord, cause your mighty ones to come down. It's talking about that army that we were reading about in Joel chapter 2. It's talking about that army, that invasion that Habakkuk saw taking place in Habakkuk chapter 3. Now here Joel is saying, in the place where these armies are gathered, thither, there, Lord, cause that military of yours, cause your mighty ones to come down. Now that's what you saw on Independence Day. Go ahead.
Assemble yourselves and come, O ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about.
Thither, there, O Lord.
Cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord.
Now, you know what? Let me say this. It says, thither, cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let's do this. I'm going to prove it to you. We're going to go well, how much is to that? Was that the last one?
Yeah.
That was the last verse is that verse 14?
No, that's verse 11.
Keep on reading the verse 14.
Verse 12. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat.
That's what I was trying to get to. This place that's called, now we already read Revelation. Did we get to the verse in chapter 16 where it says, and he brought them to a place called Armageddon? Because that's what it's talking about. We'll get back to that. In other words, in this chapter, Joel is talking about the same event, and he's referring to it as the valley of Jehoshaphat. Read on down.
For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about.
In that spot. Now remember, Christ said in 2nd Ezra that he was going to gather these people so that he could turn them against himself. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Put you in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe.
It's talking like there's going to be a big harvest, like people are going to be, like that battlefield is going to be gleaned by the Most High. Go ahead.
Come, get you down, for the press is full.
It's talking now as if it was a wine press, like somebody was being called on to come and just stomp on some grapes, could tread grapes. Go ahead.
The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes.
Listen to this. Multitudes. Go ahead.
In the valley of decision.
And that's what, now first, Joel referred to it as the valley of Jehoshaphat, and then he's finishing it up referring to it as the valley of decision, because that's the place where, quote, the fate of mankind hinges on the decisions that's made, coming from a carnal point of view. When I say the fate of mankind, well, we already know Esau and Israel, our fate is sealed. It has been determined that Israel be delivered, that the Most High raises back up out of all the places where he drove us to, and that Esau be brought down, and all the nations lose their kingdom. That's the fate of mankind. But this is how the Most High chose for it to be realized, for it to be enacted in a dramatic way. Go ahead, brother.
For the day of the Lord is near.
So listen, for when this day comes, in other words, when you see all these armies gathered in this particular situation, and there having to be a decision made, go ahead.
For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision.
Now that's how we know the day of the Lord is near, because they're already over there in the valley of decision. That's where they are. Now let me say this. Go to Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 34. Isaiah chapter 34, and we're going to read verses 1 through 8. Now let me say this. the Most High is going to show you in this run of chapters, or in this run of verses. The intention is to take down Esau's army. All of the armies are going to be destroyed. But what I'm doing is I'm showing you that so far we done went to Joel. We done hit three chapters, chapter 1, 2, and 3 in Joel. We done went to Habakkuk. We done went to 2nd Exodus chapter 15. Now we're here. Listen, we done went to Revelation chapter 9 that said the angels were released so that they could draw kings there to kill the third part of man. We done went to Revelation chapter 16 to show that it said the sea, the Euphrates was dried up, that the way of the king of the east might be made. In other words, everything is pointing toward what? This one place on earth that's happening now. This is underway as I speak. Hell, did you hear that? Somebody just got shot. Somebody just got a damn leg blown off in Iraq, man. Oh, did you hear that one? Somebody just got hit with a damn, what they call it, a RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade. Did you see that helicopter go down just now? Because that's what's taking place right now while brothers and sisters is in the States watching cable TV. While brothers and sisters is in the States praising LeBron. You know what I'm saying? While brothers is out trying to get a damn rap contract or a basketball contract or play football or vote for Obama, you got the Most High have this circumstance, this situation intensifying. Okay, what verse we have, brother? Isaiah 34, starting at verse 1. Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations. Now you see the Most High is calling to arms, calling attention, calling the nations to attention. This is in this verse, in this chapter, I should say, he is going to interchange nations and peoples with heavens and hosts. Nations, he's going to say nations and their armies. Then he's going to come back and refer to them as heavens and their hosts, because the term host means a multitude or an army. So when he says this blood that we read in the book of Joel that was supposed to be shown in heaven is talking about these kingdoms, and this particular verse this chapter is going to give insight and detail into that. Go ahead. Verse 2. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations. The indignation of the Lord is upon who? All nations. Now let me say this. You know what the beautiful thing about this is Israel have already been judged. We have already felt. Hell, my ass is still burning from the ass whooping I got in America. I'm still hurting. My hind part is still swollen up because we've been judged. The Most High said now he's mad at all the nations. Go ahead. His indignation is against all nations. Go ahead. And he's fury upon all their armies. And his what? He's fury upon all their armies. And that's showing you, man, his fury upon their armies. So you see, he said nations and armies. Now he's going to reiterate this later on, but he's going to refer to them as heavens because all of them are kingdoms. The term heaven is used interchangeably with kingdoms and empires, realms in the realm of the dwelling of men. Go ahead. He has utterly destroyed them. Can you read, brother? Verse 3. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stinks shall come up out of their carcasses. Now that's what it said. What? That's what it said in Joel chapter 2. Remember when he said from to a land barren with his face toward the east sea? It's the same thing. Go ahead. The Most High is talking about erasing these armies. Continue. And the mountains shall be melted with their blood. And all the host of heaven, and all the armies of this kingdom, and all the armies of the realm of men. That's what it means when it says heaven. And all the hosts of heaven, go ahead, shall be dissolved. Now, when he says dissolved, he's talking about the type. Now, let me say this. Why would it say dissolved? We don't physically have to go back, but if you can remember Joel chapter 2 and verse 3, where it says, before them with a flame, and behind them everything was left burning in flames. It says when they approached, it was as the Garden of Eden, and when they had left, it was a desolation. That's what he's talking about. The same thing here. All these armies are going to be dissolved because the Most High is going to have them use their nuclear war or their nuclear arms against one another, and then Christ is going to come and top it off with spiritual fire. And we're going to read that. That's in another book of Ezra. It's in chapter 13. We're going to go there after this very shortly. Go ahead, brother.
And the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll.
And the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll. In other words, it's talking about all these armies that are involved. The skies over these kingdoms are going to have mushroom clouds. Have you ever seen a mushroom cloud? You can't tell me. Have you ever seen a scroll? Those are the ancient books that was in the form of a roll where the paper was rolled up, and then you had two puffy ends, one on each extreme, so that the paper wouldn't slide off of the roll. But that's what a mushroom cloud looked like. It looked like what? A scroll that's standing up on one end. The ground swell, from the blast at the base of it swells out and goes out in its perimeter, and then the column shoots up in the sky and envelops over like an umbrella. Read that again, brother.
Isaiah 34, verse 4 from the top. And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down.
All of their armies are going to be burnt up. They're going to fall down. Go ahead.
As the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a fallen fig from the fig tree.
Okay. We're going to pick up where we left off. Go ahead.
Isaiah 34, verse 5.
Go ahead.
For my sword shall be bathed in heaven.
Now, go ahead.
Behold.
Now, listen. When he said, my sword shall be bathed in heaven, the whole first two verses, the whole first three verses, he's been saying, you men, you nations, you people, your army. Now he's coming back and saying heaven, because that's what he was talking about. But the heaven is a term that's used interchangeably, which means the realm of men. Go ahead.
For my sword shall be bathed in heaven.
Now it's going to tell you which specific kingdom is targeted.
Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea.
Now, Idumea, when you get your Bible dictionary, you can even, historically, you can get this I believe it's possible to get this reference in a regular dictionary, or at least an encyclopedia. Definitely, you can get it in an encyclopedia. It lets you know that Idumea was the Greco-Roman word for Edom. So the Lord said, my sword shall be bathed in Edom. Go ahead.
And upon the people of my curse.
The curse is talking about the people that had that mark put on them, that they're a nation of lepers. They're a nation of lepers. Go ahead.
To judgment.
Go ahead.
The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness. And with the blood of lambs and goats.
Right? Now let me say this. When you go into the ancient days, your ticket to the ancient days will be reading the scriptures. You read the book of Leviticus particularly. It'll tell you how the Levites were to enact and to officiate and to perform all of the sacrifice. So when it says the bull, read that again.
The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness. And with the blood of lambs and goats.
In other words, he is referring to this event. It's going to be considered a sacrifice. Now, when you read the book of, I believe it's Psalms or Proverbs, it says the wicked shall be a ransom for the righteous and the ungodly for the godly. So the Most High consider this event that is referred to as the Day of the Lord, this event that is referred to as Armageddon, is actually going to be a sacrifice so that the nation of Israel can be delivered. When you read the book of Hebrews, it tells you, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. In other words, Christ shed his blood so that we could be adopted back to the Father as his children. But in order for us to be released, the Most High compare our liberation to that of a woman in childbirth. And you know how bloody and painful it is. And that's what the Most High said. So when he talks about the blood of the fat, there were certain things that certain parts of the animal when sacrificed that the Most High wanted, and the other parts went to the Levites for them to eat. Go ahead.
With the fat of the kidneys of rams.
Uh-huh.
So the Lord have a sacrifice in Bozrah.
Now, hold on. When it said Bozrah, Bozrah in the ancient days was the chief city of the land of Edom. Today we refer to the chief city as the capital. So when we look at the Edomite global power structure, within this Edomite global power structure, you got two blocks. You got the Anglo-Americanism, you actually got three powerhouses. You got all of the parts are part of it. You got the Anglo-American power structure, which is for the most part England and America, and they are the preeminent. You got the Socialist European Union, and they're like fighting to take the preeminent. And then you got the Asia, the North Asian powerhouse that's known as today the Russian Federation. So when it says Bozrah, Bozrah is the one that is the most powerful out of all of them. The chief city today, the one that has the preeminent without question, is America. And that's why the Most High said his sword is going to be bathed. As time goes on, as we continue these broadcasts, you're going to find out that the Most High, let me say, it's going to become crystal clear to you. America is going to be destroyed from sea to shining sea by thermonuclear war, by the Most High's angels attacking it, and then also, by how can I put it? By all the things that would have happened before that. In other words, the social breakdown, the martial law, all the riots, the race wars, that's going to be the political destruction of America. But it's going, the thermonuclear bombing of America is the climax and the final event. But there are going to be certain parts of Europe and Russia, or certain parts of Europe and Asia that will be destroyed. But for the most part, they're not going to be destroyed. You have certain areas within Europe that are going to be destroyed, and the rest of them, the Most High tell you that when it says afterwards, there's going to be there's a scripture in Jeremiah 16:16 where the Lord said, "Behold, I send forth fishers, and they shall fish them, and afterward I shall send forth hunters." And it says, "And they shall hunt them out of all the clefts and the holes and the rocks of the earth." In other words, after this third world war, after Armageddon, after the day of the Lord, Esau going to be them. Why do you think in Revelation it said that they went and hid and asked the mountains, "Fall on us and hide us from him that sit on the throne"? Because they're going to be left alive, because the Most High is going to, Christ is going to assemble an army and march across the world and drag all of these nations kicking and screaming into slavery. That's written in the book of Psalms, where it says their kings and their nobles are going to be taken into captivity in fetters of iron. So where you at, brother?
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 6.
Go ahead. Read the verse from the top again.
Isaiah chapter 34 verse 6 from the top. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams.
Now it's talking about people, but he's speaking about this slaughter metaphorically as if it was going to be a great sacrifice, because it is. Go ahead.
So the Lord have a sacrifice in Bozrah.
Bozrah is America today, because it is out of the Edomite Empire. It is the chief city. It is the capital. It is the capital empire. Go ahead.
And a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. And the unicorns shall come down with them.
It's not talking about, listen to this. It ain't talking about no horse with wings with the horn on his head. The unicorn, if you look through resources, as many times is referred to as a certain species of the rhinoceros. It has one big horn on its nose. In other words, those were the big beasts of burden and the bullocks that the Most High used in the ancient days for sacrifice. Go ahead.
And the bullocks with the bulls, and their land shall be soaked with blood,
and their land shall be soaked with blood,
and their dust made fat with fatness.
Go ahead.
For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance.
Once again, the day of the Lord, particularly speaking his vengeance. In other words, like I said, a lot of times you'll read or you'll hear about Armageddon, but Armageddon is more exhaustively referred to as the day of the Lord, the day of the Lord's vengeance, the day of his redeemed. It's his day. Go ahead.
And the year of recompenses.
And when it says recompenses, the year of payback. The Most High is going to pay back all the nations for the evil that they've done, and they're partaking in what in our corruption. All right, go ahead. What verse is that?
Verse 8.
Continue.
For the controversy of Zion.
For what?
For the controversy of Zion.
He's going to take revenge and pay back for the controversy. Now, let me say this. Why would he say the controversy of Zion? Because the whole world have been made to believe that the people who reside in our land are the people of the Bible. That's, it's controversial for a brother or sister to stand up and say, I'm an Israelite. My homeland is Israel. What happens after, in the midst of so-called anybody, even other black people? It always is a big scandal. It always breaks out into a controversial discussion. How can you guys be the Israelites when the Israelis are already in their land? The prophecies that are stated where the Most High is going to bring his people back home to occupy their land. The world is under the impression that prophecy was fulfilled. There's a controversy behind that. Now, was that the last verse on that? Yeah. Okay, we're going to get some more. But what I want to do, let's go. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We did not go into the parties involved. Matter of fact, we're going to save that for last. Right now, we're breaking down in detail what's taking place and the final event that this is all leading to. Now, the last maybe hour, maybe 45 minutes, we're going to break down which countries, because the scripture has a list of all parties to be involved in this, all military. Which military? That's what we'll reserve like maybe the last 45 minutes for. So for now, I'd like to go to Revelation chapter 17. Matter of fact, we didn't. Let's do this. When you read Revelation chapter 9, did we read all the way to verse 21 from 13?
No.
Okay, we're going to go through that again. We're going to go through a quick run on Revelation. We're going to read Revelation chapter 9, verses 13 through 21. We're going to read Revelation 16, verses 12 through 21. And we're going to read Revelation 19, it's a bunch of them, verses 11 through 21. They keep it seem to end up on 21. And we're going to go to Revelation 17, verses 12 to 17. There's 4 chapters where we're going to be getting from Revelation so that you can see this a lot clearer. Okay, so the first one, brother, Revelation chapter 9, verse 13 through 21. Go ahead.
And the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before the Most High. Saith the 6th angel, which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels were loose.
So we already broke that down. This is taking place in Iraq. The spirits have been released so that the dynamic is set in motion to pull kings and their armies into that battlefield, into that theater of war. Go ahead.
Which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the third part of men.
When he said the third part of men, it's talking about, in other words, the mankind is divided into 3 classifications of man. You have the sons of men, which for the most part are all the nations outside of Israel. And of those sons of men, one of those nations is designated as the sons of the wicked. Those are the Edomites today. And then you got the sons of men, which are the nations. Of the nations, one of the sons of men, of the Gentiles, of the heathen, one of those nations is considered by the Most High, have been set up, have been established as the sons of the wicked. Those are the Edomites. The Edomites today are people that are loosely referred to as white people. They're not white, they are red, various shades of it. Then you have the nation of people that have been reserved for the Most High unto himself. They are referred to as the Israelites. That's us. So when he said the third part of men, when you read the scriptures, the Most High is not coming to take down the nations like Esau. In other words, the nations are under Esau. That's just Esau's foreign. You know, it's funny because you need to go with what I would urge is that our listeners do research or Google up the term full spectrum dominance. because that is what Esau's that is how Esau's political, or I should say his international, his foreign policy can be summed up. This is in his own white papers, his own documents, to establish and maintain full spectrum dominance. So the nations actually are under this dude. That's what Isaiah chapter 14 was about. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? In other words, how you done got brought down? Are you like us now? Art thou become like unto we? So that's what that's talking about when he said for to destroy the third part of men. It's talking about the sons of the wicked are going to be usurped by Christ and his army. Tell them what verse you had to keep on reading.
Revelation chapter 9 and verse 16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000.
That's talking about Christ coming with 1,000,000 angels. No, I'm sorry. This is talking about the bombs. It's going to describe it. Read on down. When I say the bombs, in other words, the Most High is going to put on the minds of these kings to fire all of their weapons, all of their nuclear weapons on this one part of the earth called the United States. That's why the scripture said the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard. In other words, imagine all the concentrated weapons, all the weapons of the world from all the nations with those capabilities being attacking and hitting this one concentrated area on the globe. The earth literally is going to move. Go ahead.
And I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. And them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth, and brimstone. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions.
Now let me say this. It's talking about the actual missiles. Now I'm going to prove it to you. When he said, because remember, John just saw these vehicles, these objects flying. Now when he's describing their power, how it is that they can destruct. Read it again, that verse about the head of them.
And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth, and brimstone.
In other words, can somebody ride a horse and have a breastplate that's made of fire? You know, when a missile has been launched, it seems to have like a fiery, it's enveloped in fire. That's why when you see these missiles shot at night, they just look like what? Shooting streams of light. Read on down.
And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions.
Now, it's going to explain why he said the heads of lions. Because these missiles don't have a big furry mane. Go ahead.
And out of their mouths issued fire.
Now, that's how you do lions spit fire. You know what? When you look at a missile, where is the destructive force? The destructive force is in the tip that is referred to as a warhead. The rest of the missile is nothing more than what? Propelling. And it has various stages or phases. They have the first phase, and then it goes to a second phase of a booster, and then it goes into another phase, and then it comes over the spot where the coordinates take it to, and then it falls down straight. And before it gets to the ground, it detonates so many 100 feet in the air so as to have maximum potential. That's why it makes big-ass craters, because it explodes like about anywhere from 100 to 300 feet above the surface of the ground. Go ahead.
And smoke and brimstone.
Read it again from the top of that.
And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone.
He's talking about it was made of metal and it was fiery as it traveled. Go ahead.
And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions.
Go ahead. The reason it said lion is because the destructive force of a lion is not his tail. The destructive force of a lion is not his body. The destructive force of a lion is in his head. Now he's going to say, go ahead.
Out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone.
Because that's what the warhead produced. Fire and smoke and brimstone. Brimstone in ancient days was that substance that made things burn beyond normal burning temperatures. Brimstone. Go ahead.
Verse 18. By these three was the third part of men killed.
By those three things, by those three substances was the sons of the wicked destroyed. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And by the smoke and by the brimstone,
by the smoke, and by the brimstone,
which issued out of their mouth.
because it's talking about once the bomb exploded, you got, read it again from the top, Bob. Go ahead.
By these three was the third part of men killed.
You didn't mention the fire. Go ahead.
By the fire,
In other words, by these three things, the fire,
and by the smoke,
and the smoke,
and by the brimstone,
and the brimstone is that element within these nuclear missiles that cause that the fire can't be put out. Because they don't use, the scientists today to say, well, they're not talking about brimstone. The brimstone is that equivalent to the plutonium or the uranium or that type of that makes that fire radioactive fire. It can't be put out. That's what it means when it says brimstone. Go ahead.
which issued out of their mouths,
Which came from the tip of it, which came from the warhead. Go ahead.
for their power is in their mouth.
Listen to this. That's how you know. It's talking about the missile. The power is in their mouth. Go ahead.
And in their tails,
And in their tails. Go ahead.
for their tails were like unto serpents.
Aha! That's how you know it's not talking about a lion. What does a serpent look like but a long tubular fixture? A long tubular, there's a term, like a long tubular fuselage. And the head, it says the head came, out of the head came fire and smoke and brimstone, and the body of this lion, so to speak, of this, it's a missile. It said it was like the body of a snake. Go ahead.
And had heads, and with them they do hurt.
Okay, so that's short. Read that. What verse is that?
19.
Read 19 again.
For their power is in their mouth, and in their tails.
Listen, the power is in their mouth and in their tail. And that's going to show you. Because the mouth is the warhead. The tail is the delivery system. It's the actual what? Fuselage, where you see the smoke coming over. What propels it from one, they can program it with coordinates, with certain coordinates, so that this bomb can arrive from Moscow to Washington, from Moscow to Chicago, from fucking, all these different countries, from different countries in the east to all of these cities. But it's propelled what? By that serpentine fuselage, where once it gets to over the projected city, then it breaks off, and you got what? You got the warhead that drops on the location. It'll be the whole thing by the time it reach a destination. Go ahead.
For their tails were like unto serpents.
Right, man. Go ahead.
And had heads, and with them they do hurt.
That's a missile. You got the warhead with the delivery system, with the delivery fuselage. Go ahead.
Verse 20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues.
I did not say that it's not going to be, the whole world ain't going to be destroyed. You got all of America, certain part of Europe and Asia. And the rest is going to get hunted down like animals and drug into slavery, kicking and screaming. Go ahead.
Yet repented not of the works of their hands.
In other words, behind that destruction, they're not going to change. And on top of that, that's the judgment. It's going to be too late to repent. That's what repent means, to change. Go ahead.
That they should not worship devils and idols of gold.
In other words, like all of these nations have their different types of, they have say it again? Yeah, they're different deities. They're different, today they call them, somebody gonna write us about saying deities, it's religion. Because that's what it is. The Muslims have Islam, the Chinese got what they got, and the East Indians got what they got. In other words, this is what the Most High said they're not going to change from. In other words, Christ is going to have to assemble an army and march across the world and beat these people into submission. Go ahead.
And idols of gold and silver and brass and stone.
Yeah, it's talking about all the idols. Now, listen, it ain't necessarily confined to literal Buddha statues. It's not literally confined to crosses and all of the different Catholic statues. It's talking about what? Like the people into gold Rolex watches, people into their cars made of iron. What do people are like today? What's those, chain. Yeah, gold chain. Ooh, that's a nice car. Ooh, where'd you get that widescreen TV from? Go ahead.
And of wood.
And of wood. Continue, like their damn houses. People are outside their houses. You know, how many times have you turned on the computer and the opening page of YouTube? I did it yesterday. I went to go check my mail. Say that again.
MTV Cribs.
Yeah, they got this show, because I wouldn't know about that. They got this show called MTV Cribs. That's the people are worshiping, you know, where they live at. It was Yahoo page, and it had Tommy Hilfiger moved into his new dream home. And I never knew what this damn monster looked like. He's a big old faggoty looking Edomite. I ain't met too many of them that ain't faggoty looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it shows you they be praising these people for their possession.
Yep. People
worship the possession. The minute that they lose the possession, they no longer feel like anything. And Esau suffered when he don't have that little sports red car, the red sports car. He suffered from what? A low self-esteem.
Not just Esau, Israelites as well.
Exactly. All Israel followed Esau.
Yeah.
If Esau made having a damn three-legged mule the end means of transportation, Jake would be breaking his leg. He would be going into debt to get him a three-legged mule, because Esau said, "This is what they call it, the pimp my ride." Esau would create a show called "Pimp My Three-Legged Mule," and Jake would go out and get him and try to be better. Jake would get him a two-legged mule, one with a front right leg and a rear left leg, and be thinking he's fine, because that's what our people are into. They're into five. They worship Esau, so they worship Esau, so they undertake Esau's practices. Esau has been made the standard. Esau is the measure of a man. Esau is the measure of what family living is like. They try to structure their family after what Esau is like. They want to go to Esau's schools. They want to wear Esau's clothes. You see some people walk around looking like a damn Tommy Hilfiger walking billboard. Read that again, brother, about them idols.
Verse 20 from the top. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see, nor hear, nor walk.
This is showing you that in the aftermath of Armageddon, the survivors are going to still be off in caves worshiping idols. They're going to still be off in, they will not have changed. Now, what verse was that?
Verse 20.
Okay, read verse 21.
Verse 21. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication.
You know why I say sorceries? You'd be surprised how subtle sorcery is. For instance, how many people can go to their medicine cabinet and find at least one bottle of some form of antidepressant? That is sorcery. The pharmaceutical industry itself is sorcery. The term, if you go look up pharmacy in the dictionary, it'll take you to what the root word, or what it's, I should say, the word that it derives from is the Latin or Greek pharmakia, which means sorcery, because they are mind-altering drugs. They take the mind where the Most High didn't intend that our level of consciousness, that our realm of awareness not go. Let me tell you something. There is no such thing as a hallucinogen. When you take certain substances, those substances are tools of sorcery, and your mind is opened up to a level or a dimension or a realm of existence that was not intended for us. We have what the Most High referred to over our eyes as spiritual veils. In other words, partitions through which we're not supposed to be able to see into other realms. And when you take these substances that alter the mind, they actually open your mind to realms where you have been, where there was a barrier set up for you called your reality, your existence, our consciousness. And that's what the Most High is referring to. Let me make this statement. A lot of people don't really realize that's what the taking of Afghanistan was about. It isn't just about natural resources. It's about the poppy field that the Taliban had almost altogether rooted out. And from there, they have military men now, the United States military and the coalition forces, can't leave out those guys. The coalition forces literally are guarding and raising and cultivating the poppy fields. And from those poppy fields, that is what produces heroin that is shipped to the states and distributed throughout all the ghettos and barrios of the United States. That's why the Most High said they're involved in some deep level sorcery. Now, we're going to go to 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, and we're going to start at verse 29. We're going to read all the way down to 38, but we're going to start at verse 29 and show you that the prophet Ezra also saw this prophecy, had a vision, and the Most High broke it down for him in detail. It's a long chapter, so we're going to go right to the explanation of the vision that Ezra. We're not going to break down. We're not going to go and read the entire. Read that, brother. The angel Uriel gave the prophet Ezra the breakdown to a vision that the Most High had given him the night before. Go ahead, brother.
2nd Ezra chapter 13 and 29. Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth.
In other words, who is it that the Most High is going to deliver? He's talking about delivering Israel. As a matter of fact, let's do this. I want you to start at verse 1 so that they can be familiarized at least, because we got 43 minutes. They can be familiarized with what the chapter is about. I'm going to let you read uninterrupted for a few verses. Okay? I'm going to let you read uninterrupted for a few verses, but what the brother's going to be reading is 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, verses 1 on down. Go ahead, brother. Read it.
2nd Ezra chapter 13 and verse 1. And it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night. And lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that moved all the waves thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen under him. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, and flew upon it. But I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest.
Now, that sounds just like what, I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you now. That sounds just like what we read about the horses that had heads like fire in Revelation. It said the fire, the smoke, and the brimstone. But this one just said what? The blast of fire, the tempest, and what else?
The flaming breath.
The flaming breath, which is fire. Go ahead.
The blast of fire.
Blast of fire. Go ahead.
And the great tempest.
And the great tempest. Now let me say this. What verse did you finish at right now?
Verse 11.
Okay. Now he just read verses 1 through 11 of 2nd Ezra chapter 13. And what that is talking about, literally, is talking about Ezra had a vision of Christ coming back, and the nations being startled by him, and they came to attack him, and he destroyed them without effort. Now, that's why I said we were going to start off at verse 29 and just break down that vision. So, as a matter of fact, what does verse 28 say?
And that he held neither sword nor any instrument of war, but that the rushing in of him destroyed the whole multitude.
You're going to explain it. Go ahead.
That came to subdue him. This is the interpretation.
This is the interpretation of what Ezra saw. Continue.
Verse 29. Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth.
Talking about Israel, go ahead.
And he shall come to the astonishment of them.
When he say he shall come to the astonishment, if you can recall, like, you know what, and so I feel, I won't say silly, but I feel a bit inappropriate constantly referring to that movie Independence Day, but a lot of people really don't understand. That is, Esau has this concept about when he sees movies or when he listens to theatrical interpretations, he'll say, is that life depicting art or is that art depicting life? Well, in this instance, it's art depicting life. This is where Esau knows that this is going to happen, but he's passing it off as science fiction coupled with his creativity. But we're getting ready to read it. We're reading, quote, Independence Day right now. Or I should say the Independence Day scenario. And guess what? It is Independence Day because it's going to be Israel that's going to be delivered. Read it again, brother.
Verse 13. And he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth.
Read verse 29 because they're going to see it's Independence Day. He's telling you why he's coming.
Verse 29. Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them.
Will begin to what?
To deliver them.
That means to free us. That means to rescue us. Now, listen, and let me say this. When we read it, they're going to see it has the same what? The same script. It reads just like the script to Independence Day, except Esau loses like he should. Go ahead.
To deliver them that are upon the earth.
To deliver them. The them that's referring to are the Israelites that are scattered all over the world. Go ahead.
And he shall come to the astonishment of them.
When it says astonishment, meaning when Christ comes, it's going to be a surprise. That's why the scripture says he cometh as a thief. Behold, I come as a thief. Go ahead.
And he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth.
Yep.
And one shall undertake to fight against another.
Now he's saying when Christ comes, this is the dynamic that is going to be unfolded. We already are in this dynamic. It says then one shall undertake to do what?
To fight against another.
So this is what's happening. You got the Americans that are fighting the Afghans. You got the Americans that are, or I should say, the Edomite power structure, because it ain't just America over this. It's his coalition forces. It's his coalition of the willing. You got the coalition of the willing that have attacked Afghanistan. The very same coalition have attacked Iraq. I didn't say Iran twice in that. Now I hope that thing is coming soon. Go ahead.
One city against another.
Listen to this. When he said one city against another, this is what's taking place. Continue.
One place against another. One people against another.
You got people of the west versus people of the east. Continue.
And one realm against another.
And one realm against another, brother. This is how it's going. This is already underway. Continue.
Verse 32, sorry.
Go ahead.
And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass.
In other words, when all of this, listen to this, because here's the deal. He's showing us that in the midst of this, go ahead.
Verse 32 from the top. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass. And the signs shall happen which I showed thee before. And then shall my son be declared.
In other words, in the midst of all the people fighting. This is what it says. It says that one shall undertake to fight another, one people against another, one place against another, one realm against another. When all of it, so the point is, it hasn't escalated to the level of intensity that it is by the time Christ comes. But we are well in that dynamic. How long has the coalition and NATO forces been in Afghanistan? Since November of 2001. This November will make 9 years. From March 2003 to this past March, that's what, 7 years? America just completed, the coalition forces, 7 years in Iraq. And they're knocking on listen, like I said, the operations of unmanned drones that are killing people at weddings in Pakistan. Ain't nothing military going, they're just killing people. I mean, look, every time you told us they done bombed the damn wedding. Well, we didn't say it out loud, bro. Come on now.
There was another bombing yesterday.
What was it?
Friday.
What was the Friday?
They an unmanned drone.
In other words, there's somebody sitting on the other side of the world behind a computer console as if he was playing Nintendo, as if he was playing Wii. Yeah. He's on a damn PlayStation and flying an airplane, and they keep on landing. Now, where did this one go?
This is in Pakistan.
And but I'm saying, what that is?
They said that they always claim that it's basic fighters, like terrorist fighters.
Yeah, and people be all blown up with cake all over.
The Pakistanis are basically complaining that they don't know who's actually being killed. You know, the people get killed, and then the Americans just claim that it was like Taliban fighters or Al Qaeda, but they're saying that innocent civilians are being killed as well. But the funny thing is, the Pakistanis are saying that they believe that the Pakistani leadership are in cahoots with the Americans, because the Pakistanis can actually shoot them down, but they don't want to do that.
Well, yeah. But let me say, and even if they shoot the drone down, they will have not killed any soldiers.
Exactly.
They're unmanned drones. But I'm saying, if you haven't seen the depiction, it be people in wedding dresses, baby, fucking cake all over the place. It's ridiculous, man.
They're in uproar.
Now, listen, and that's what we're reading. That is what we're reading. The people are in an uproar. Go ahead.
That's right, from the top. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen which I showed thee before. And then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest as a man ascending.
In other words, in the beginning of this vision, in verse 1, 2, and 3, Ezra saw a man that ascended from amongst the sea. Well, the sea was symbolic of all the nations. And Christ came in the midst of and surprise attack. His appearance was to their astonishment in the midst of them in conflict with one another. Go ahead.
Verse 33. And when all the people heard his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have won against another.
Let me say this. Now, why does it say when the people shall hear his voice? Because when you read Thessalonians, it says the Lord shall descend with a shout. It tells you in the book of Isaiah chapter 42, I have long time holding my peace. Now will I cry like a man of war. He's going to come screaming out. He's going to come do you like you see them cats when they, like them old movies, like the Braveheart.
Yeah.
You know, that you see one side running with their sword and screaming, and then the other side will be running toward the middle of the field screaming. That's how Christ is going to approach. You got this is what's going to happen. It says Christ is going to come. He's going to cry. It says he shall cry like a man of war. He's not talking about like an American soldier crying, you know, with Gulf War syndrome, post-traumatic. He's not talking about, he ain't talking about that type of cry. He's talking about he's going to be screaming, like in the verse in Isaiah where it says, cry aloud, spare not. No, he's going to be screaming. And at the same time that he's screaming, it says another archangel is going to be blowing the trump. He's going to be blowing the trumpet. And that's how that war of fear is going to be taken by surprise. All of the bombing and the shelling is going to be pale in comparison to Christ coming and shout. You know what? You know I got to go back to the movies again. You know I got to bring up another example. Remember on War of the World? How did they know when something? You know, boom. First the electricity started hitting.
Yeah.
Electricity was coming from hitting the ground, coming up from the ground, bang, bang. And then when they finally started getting up on the legs and walking, what did you hear? But it sounded like a big old a fleet of ships. Yeah. They know that when these chariots come, they're going to be accompanied by a trump, a great horn. Read verse 33 again for some cohesion.
Verse 33. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the vessel they have one against another. And an innumerable multitude.
Read it slow. And a what?
And an innumerable multitude.
And an innumerable multitude. In other words, go ahead.
Shall be gathered together as thou sawest them, willing to come and to overcome him by fighting.
In other words, when Christ comes, let me say this. But what was taking place when he got there? It says they were fighting one another. Now, what did you see that in the movie? In Independence Day, when the ships came here and destroyed the city, they took you to places like Egypt and showed that the British and the Egypt was fighting sides. In other words, they had all people that are known to have historical conflict that haven't been resolved. Usually the occupying force, there was always an Eastern country with a European presence. But they showed that they were coming together, and then somebody in Egypt said, the Americans said they got a way to take them down. The British came to it's about bloody time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In other words, it shows you that Esau knows that this threat is coming and that they're only, matter of fact, I have an article. I'm sorry. family, you want to pick it up from verse 32. Well, I look for that article about Ronald Reagan, what he made when he was in the office, all right? I'm going to get it and read that out. It's right over here on the other side of the bed. Go ahead and get up there and read it really close.
Second Esdras, chapter 13, verse 32. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen which I showed thee before. And then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest as a man ascending. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another.
Check that out. Go ahead.
And an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as thou sawest them, willing to come and to overcome him by fighting.
Now listen to this. I'm going to read a newspaper. This is New York Post. This was one of the first articles I got when I came into the truth. This is May 5th, 1988. New York Post, Thursday, May 5th, 1988. And the title and this article reads, Reagan's Cosmic Worry, Space Invaders. Now I'm going to read on down. It says, President Reagan followed the uproar over use of astrology at the White House by saying, in other words, Reagan was using astrology at the White House, and it came out, and he took the attention off by making a statement that he often wondered what would happen if the earth were invaded by a power from outer space. Listen to this. Reagan made the comment during a question and answer session in Chicago after he was asked what he felt was the most important need in international relations. He mentioned the importance, now listen, this is going to read just what you said about, what you read about all the countries at war. What's this? He mentioned the importance of frankness and his desire for peaceful solutions, adding, now this is Reagan speaking, adding, there have been about 114 wars since World War II. Now they got this in quotes. This is his direct statement, President Ronald Reagan. But I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by an outer, and he pauses, it actually has a line, and then he comes back, a power from outer space, from another planet, Reagan said. Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all, that we were all human beings, citizens of the world, and wouldn't we come together to fight that particular threat, the president said? I'm going to read this quote again. I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by an outer pause, a power from outer space, from another planet, Reagan said. Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all? We were all human beings, citizens of the world, and wouldn't we come together to fight that particular threat, the president said? Now, like he said, he preceded that by saying that there have been 114 wars since World War II, and that was as of Thursday, May 5th, 1988. That was before the Gulf War. You know what I'm saying? Gulf War I, Gulf War II, the tearing down of the Trade Center. Read on down, brother. So he's going to go back. Now, I'm sorry that we really reiterating this, but it shows you what we're reading in the scriptures is already a White House and international concern. They know this. What you got?
Verse 32.
Go ahead.
And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen which I showed you before, and then shall my son be declared.
In other words, in the midst of all of these nations fighting one another, Christ is going to pop up. Go ahead.
Whom thou sawest as a man ascending. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another.
You hear that? All the nations are going to stop fighting with each other. Go ahead.
And an innumerable multitude.
And man, when it says an innumerable multitude, it's talking about all the armies of the world. That's why the Most High is moving them all over to one spot, so it can be convenient. Go ahead.
Shall be gathered together, as thou sawest them, willing to come and to overcome him by fighting.
Now, like President Reagan said, oh, man. Read it again, brother.
In verse 34.
Because they're already over there.
Yep.
Go ahead, read it again.
And an innumerable multitude.
And in other words, a military force without number. Go ahead.
Shall be gathered together, as thou sawest them, willing to come,
go ahead,
and to overcome him by fighting.
In other words, like the brother just said, this is their coalition of the willing. They're already over there. We done already read all the scriptures, but the truth of the matter is that's what we've been reading all night. We've been reading that what? The Most High is, their armies are already assembled. The only nation so far that have committed in the greatest scale is the Americans, but all the other nations are going as the circumstances escalate, as more countries enter in other words, as the invasion of more countries become evident and imminent, more troops from all countries are going to be sent over there because America and England ain't going to listen, everybody ain't going to be getting away with 30 troops like we read last week. We read the tally of all the troops that all the coalition members involved sent. You know, El Salvador sent three soldiers. Guatemala sent a bunch of shoes and a couple of buckets of chicken. You know what I mean? Just where the soldiers can eat. In other words, it's going to get to the point where the beast, in other words, NATO, is going to lean on all of these countries that was, quote, showing moral support, that was showing support, you know, how would we call that? I want to say, but you know what I mean, you can symbolic. Yeah, technical logistics and all that type of stuff. Yeah. The Most High going to have them commit to more troops. That's why the scriptures say an innumerable multitude, willing to overcome him by fighting. Go ahead.
And to overcome him by fighting. If he shall stand upon the top of the Mount Zion.
Oh, you know what? Remember in verse 3 where it said he had graven out a hill to fly upon? What verse was that? Is that verse 6 or something?
Yeah, verse 6.
Read that verse 6 again.
But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it.
Now, did you see that aircraft hovered, the spaceship that hovered over that Will Smith came out? Going back to the movies again, Will Smith came out of his house to pick up the newspaper, and he saw all the neighbors, you know, running in and out the house, and then he looked up, and what? He saw this big thing hovering over the LA basin, and it looked like a mountain. Remember how it was flat at the bottom, and it curved way up at the top? It tells you what the spaceship that Christ come in, his chariot, is going to look like a mountain. That's what Exodus said. I saw him flying on a mountain. And that was in the movie. It looked like a big old black, listen, and if you notice, it was a big black, like I said, that's the thick darkness that the scripture is referring to. It says the day of the Lord is thick darkness. That's what it's talking about. Read on down.
Verse 35. But he shall stand upon the top of the Mount Zion.
In other words, he's going to be on his craft. He's going to be fired at these people on his craft, from his spaceship, from his hand. Go ahead.
And Zion shall come and shall be showed to all men, being prepared.
Listen, that's talking about you brothers and sisters that's listening. When he said, and Zion shall come and be showed building, when the Most High have Christ come down there, in that moment, he's going to manifest that you are the people that he's been preparing for this event. You're being this show. I'm putting in my work in building. You got other brothers. The brothers on Sword of Truth Bible Talk, Mashaba, all them cats, man. The brothers Stone on the East Coast. The brothers from ICUPK on the East Coast in Philly. All of these cats, you guys are going to, when it says, and Zion shall be coming to see building, you're going to know that what we was teaching you was really the truth, and that was the work of the Most High being done by the Spirit of Christ that's in us. Go ahead.
Verse 36 in the top. And Zion shall come and shall be showed to all men.
The whole world. And listen, that's in the book of Revelation, chapter 11. It says, and they were ascended into a crowd, and all their enemies beheld them. Go ahead.
Being prepared and building, like as thou sawest the hill graven without hands.
Go ahead.
And this, my son, shall rebuke the wicked invention.
And this, my son, this is the angel Uriel speaking to Ezra, relating a message from the Most High. So when he said this, my son, he's saying, and this Christ, this man that you saw is my son. He's going to rebuke those nations. Go ahead.
And this, my son, shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations.
What does it mean when he says rebuke the wicked invention? Christ's presence and his power is going to render the weapons and the arms of these armies that come against them useless. Literally, and you know what? The only use that they're going to have, like Christ said in the 2nd Ezra chapter 15, is they're only going to be able to what? Be used on one another. They're not going to work on Yahawashai. They're not going to work on Yahawashai. You know what? This is what I want to do. I would like to encourage the listeners to go to Google video. You might find it on YouTube also, and look for a documentary called Out of the Blue. You're going to love it because it has all types of military personnel that have had encounters with so-called UFOs, specifically in military bases and nuclear facilities, missile silos, missile testing, where they have in mid-flight, while the nuclear Esau was testing on certain missiles, these so-called UFOs appeared and literally flew a few times around a missile that was flying at type of speed, and then shot at it 2 or 3 times and disabled it, sending the missile to the ground. That's in the documentary. But I really encourage, you don't have to buy it. All you got to do is do a Google video search, because on Google videos, you're going to get the entire documentary. You may be able to get it also on YouTube, but the name of the video, once again, is called Out of the Blue, and it's a documentary about so-called unidentified flying object or UFO encounters with all military, Air Force, Royal Air Force, encounters with that personnel, technical staff, nuclear physicists, all of the tests that are involved in doing all the nuclear test sites, missile test sites, weapons delivery system tests. You're going to see it's a bad documentary, but it shows you Esau knows he got a problem on his hands. What verse you have, brother?
37.
We're going to read over it on 38, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Verse 37 from the top. And this, my son, shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations.
In other words, Christ is going to reject, is going to disable all of those devices wherewith they plan on fighting Yahawashai. Go ahead.
Which for their wicked life are fallen into the tempest. And shall lay before them their evil thoughts, and the torments wherewith they shall begin to be tormented.
And the torments wherewith they shall. In other words, brother, this ain't going to, you know what? When you think about it, you know what? Let's do this real quick. I want to just go to Revelation chapter 18 just to show, and I want you to find the verse where it says, for in 1 hour, so great city, have come to naught. Because this ain't going to be no 3-week process. You know, like Christ's going to come and have a 24-hour countdown like they did on Independence Day. He's going to come, but when you think about it, to go through what these nations got coming for an hour, that's a long time, man. That ain't no short time. You know, think about it, man. Think about the type of destruction. I mean, let's try to imagine it, because we really can't fathom it. Number one, it ain't never happened before on the earth. Number two, we don't really want to be there. But when you think about it, to have to go through what these people are going to go through for an hour, that's a long time. What verse you found it?
Yeah.
What verse is it?
Revelation chapter 18, verse 15. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her,
is talking about all these nations overseas. You know what? That's truth too, because think about it. Where is everything that's imported to the States produced there? Even America's manufacturing base, even England's manufacturing imported base have been shipped where? To overseas. Not the States, so to China. Everything is made in China. Everything is made in Taiwan.
Yeah.
So it says all of these, in other words, those are the merchants that this scripture is talking about. In other words, I took you to this so that you can see that the other nations are going to witness to their degree America's destruction.
Read it says, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her.
Yeah, especially China.
For no man buyeth their merchandise anymore.
Ain't going to be no Walmart. Now, that might sound like a joke, but let me say this. What are these countries doing? They're producing goods because of the cheap labor that they can produce goods at. The cheap, I say cheap labor because they really don't. It's slave labor.
It's not even like this morning. There was I watched a documentary on chocolate and cocoa, and basically they were saying how in Africa they traffic these young kids about 8 years old, 9 years old, they're basically from Burkina Faso, and they traffic them to Ghana to work in these cocoa plantations, and all the cocoa is mostly gone to America. And I was watching. I was
Well, let me ask you this: what do you think people working poppy fields, working in South America and Colombia, is planta coca? You know, so that's the cocaine can come from.
Yeah.
That's what it's talking about. But now, even in legitimate products, like you said, cacao, the cocoa, which is what chocolate comes from. Everything is made in these other countries and what? And imported, or I should say exported from those countries, imported into the States, and then, so how do Americans think they could be up in Wisconsin in the winter eating pineapple, eating bananas, eating tropical fruit, eating strawberries? You know, up in a place where they listen, they can sit up, they can get up in the morning, have pancakes and fresh strawberries and bananas over them, and then go out and shovel their car out of a 6-foot mountain of snow, and then drive to work. Come back out afterwards, re-shovel their car out of all that damn mountain of snow, because remember, it is Wisconsin in the middle of the winter, and they come back home. How do Americans think they can do that? Go ahead, brother, read that.
Verse 15. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her,
which were made rich by America. In other words, by being able for the American system to buy their goods, these merchants were made rich. Go ahead.
Shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment.
They're going to see, let me say this, you're going to see the mushroom plumes from Africa. They're going to see the mushroom plumes from Latin America, man. Go ahead.
Weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold,
check that out,
and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is
for what?
For in 1 hour.
In 1 hour.
So great riches is come to naught.
Is going to come to nothing, man. And that's what it means when it says, and Christ shall rebuke them and torment them. So let me say this before we finish up. It's really necessary is to be able to, I would like to make the assumption, and I'm more than sure the assumption is wrong, but I would like to start off and assume that eventually you brothers and sisters that are listening are going to share this information or at least try to urge other listeners, you know, to listen to the show who may be beginners, because we're speaking literally about the record that the Most High left of his Son Christ. It tells you that in 1 John, because they believe not the record, so that their scriptural aptitude can be at its highest. That's what it's about. And then we're going to get up into the most advanced and complicated topics and concepts. The added advantage about the YouTube breakdown is we have a lot of visual aids based on the topic. My plan is, there's a few scriptures here that I didn't get to. So my plan is to continue and finish this topic. I'm assuming that we left enough scriptures so that you can thoroughly see where the theater of war is for Armageddon. What the dynamic that the world is in politically, militarily, financially, economically. Now, the stage is already set. There's only a matter of intensification. There's only a matter of escalation. You know what I mean? That's all the issue is. So that's what was about. But when we open up next week, we want to go and show you that the Bible has a list of the nations that are to be involved, so that you guys can literally make it a point to keep up with the current events in the news. Just to let you know, Turkey was a NATO nation, a Muslim nation that was in NATO. But ever since that event has taken place, Turkey have threatened, and I think they've moved through with it, to break ranks with NATO and have drawn closer now to Iran and Syria and the Arab nations. So it's events like that when you see the scriptures, Turkey is mentioned in the scriptures as Togarmah. Scripturally, geographically, the place that's known as Turkey was once referred to as Togarmah. So next week's show is going to be dedicated to showing you which parties are going to be involved. Just for the record of Christ, that is, the record that the Most High left of Christ. Now, we really like to, I would like I actually urge all of the listeners to tell their friends, tell other people, and send in your comments in the comment box. Leave a comment. Leave a question in the comment box. Leave a suggestion on the topic you'd like to have thoroughly broke down. So until then, we'll see you guys next week. Shalom. Shalom.
Shema Yasharallah Yahawah Allah Yahawah Yahawah Shema Yasharallah Yahawah Allah Yahawah Yahawah Shema Yasharallah Yahawah Allah Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our power, Yahweh is one.